2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política, es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to our member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CTOUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement quédate en casa, que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
Udo también.
Sí, dame un segundito.
Ok.
Y te mando una presentación que acaba de llegar.
Ok. How's the floor, Karen? Karen, floor? Okay, give us a minute and we start with Spanish.
Dr. Martin, we are going to test interpretation. Give us a couple of seconds. Thank you.
Avísame, Gloria. ¿Ya? Ok, español, por favor. Ok. Segunda consola, por favor. Ok. English booth.
Here we are, Houston, all is well. Hello, can you hear me? All the better. Okay, hang on. I know. That was why they stayed up there. Okay, you're welcome.
Portugués, señor Guillermo. Ok. Karen, Portugués. Buen día, buen día. ¿Cómo le va? Ok. Perfect. Vamos a francés. Aló, aló. Bonjour. Muy bien. Perfecto, gracias. Segunda consola. Muchas gracias.
Dr. Martin, could you please request the floor?
To work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to
Luis,
protect
por favor,
workers,
le damos la palabra
employment,
que
and
parece que se
income.
salió otra vez.
Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine,
Something
provided
Can you-
117,000
Luis, por
teachers
favor.
with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic.
Right, I think I'm here now. Are you
Through
hearing me?
its network and platforms, the
We can
Inter-American
hear you,
Committee
we
on
cannot
Ports
see you
promoted
yet.
international and national
Okay.
best practices,
Right.
guidelines,
Can you
protocols,
try
and
again your audio?
recommendations on COVID-19
Yes.
safety
Are you hearing me clearly?
measures
Is it
and
better? I have a
continuity
headset
of
on now.
logistic operations.
Could you please touch the
Initiatives
microphone
such
of your
as the
headset?
Education in Times of Change
I just want to make
platform
sure that the
allowed us to meet urgent
no,
needs
you have to
by offering
select
timely
that
tools
device
on
in
virtual
the
education
setting.
and a dedicated space for
the
ministries
platform.
to share strategies, actions, and solutions.
You have to open there and begin
Other programs
selecting.
such as the Rural Fund
You're going to
stepped
see
up,
some options.
providing
Actually, I'm going
emergency
to allow my
grants
colleagues to
to
help you,
offset the
guide
challenges
you better
imposed
than
on our
myself.
students by the
Good,
pandemic.
good. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but
Partnerships are
it's
adding
still the
value to
same
member states
audio.
in the form of technical assistance, training,
Keep trying.
and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector
Luis, por favor, ayudas al
institutions,
Dr.
we
Martin,
offered
si
micro,
acaso,
small, and
para que lo
medium
guíes mejor.
enterprises
Are you
access
hearing me
to
better?
online tools and training,
Hello, sir.
increasing
Yes.
their
So
visibility
did you go to the
and
settings of the
participation
Kuro
in
platform?
e-commerce,
It's
a key
it's
to
a
their
wheel
survival
next to
and
the
growth
world
in the
map,
pandemic and post-pandemic
and
era.
then you click
A
on
new
media
OAS SETI
settings,
Facebook initiative provided 85,000
and then you
MSMEs
will
across the
have
region with capacity
a few
building
selections for
opportunities
your
and
microphone.
WhatsApp business tools
Right.
to aid
and
response,
test one by
recovery,
one.
and resilience
So
building.
test, Click OK.
The Caribbean
Tap the
Small
mic-
Business
tap
Development
your
Center's
microphone.
program achieved real
Okay,
impact,
great. So I'm on
supporting
one now.
new businesses,
So
expanding
how is it
sales,
sounding now?
and driving
It's not
growth.
Nope.
capturing
A
yet.
new network of Caribbean
Okay.
SPDCs
Let
will
me try the
broaden
other
the
one.
program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the C2,
What are the names of the microphones?
convened ministerial-level policy
you hearing
dialogue
anything? Nothing?
in an urgent
No.
response to the
What
impact
are the
of the
names when you
pandemic
do the drop
on the
down?
hard-hit tourism and
I have a
hospitality
default,
sectors.
that's the microphone
Policymakers
array.
and
That's
experts
my
discussed
computer.
biosanitary
There's one called
protocols,
communication
travel
microphone,
and
real
visa
tech.
facilitation,
And there's
among
another
other
one with
critical
microphone
areas
array,
for the
real
sector's
tech.
recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the
Uh,
U.S. Bureau
not-
of
not
Indian
the default,
Affairs,
check the other two.
we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities,
Right, are
the
you hearing me?
private sector,
Better now? Wait,
and
try one.
governments. SETI
No, I
also
mean,
integrated
audio is not
sustainable
bad
development
in the
practices
sense
in
that
the
you get close
COVID-19
to the
response.
computer, but we
The
much
pandemic is
prefer
a daily
if it
reminder
captures
of the
the
links
microphone next
between
to your
water,
mouth.
health,
Alright, so
sanitation,
can I try restarting or
food
rejoining?
Yeah.
security,
Try
and
refreshing
nutrition.
and see if
We
it
ensured the
captures
continuity of our water management
with the mic
projects
plugged in.
in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the
Right, how is it
pandemic
sounding now?
on
Is it sounding
energy
better?
and air quality.
Unfortunately, we are receiving your audio from
These
the
few
PC,
examples indicate our collective
or laptop.
impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent
Did you try
than ever
the three options,
to
right?
address
In
the
the microphone,
region's structural
Yes.
you're
weaknesses,
supposed to
Yes,
see
I'm trying.
the like a
recover
blue
from the
line
health,
moving whenever
economic,
the
and
platform
social
detects the
crises
correct.
occasioned by the
Maybe
pandemic
the headset
and
is not
prepare
working.
for future shocks.
Alright, so
It
let me
is
try another
imperative
headset
that we
then,
work
because I'm
together
hearing from the headset.
as we risk losing
Definitely hearing from
recent
the headset,
development
but
gains
I don't know
and
if it's
seeing
probably the mic
millions
is
fall
Yeah, maybe
back
the
into
microphone is
poverty.
not working, but the headset,
It
yes.
is time for the region to redirect course and
All right,
pursue
good.
a more
me get that.
sustainable,
Okay.
resilient, and equitable future for
Luis,
all.
apagas el micrófono, por favor.
We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda.
Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Right. Is anything different now?
No, unfortunately, it's the same. It's the same. Let me just. Can you please count up to 10, so my colleagues from the booth will let me know if they can interpret it that way. Can you please count to 10?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. The only thing I would suggest is please avoid any type of noise in the room. You know, like moving papers or because that will make it more difficult. And just make sure you're the closest you can to the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Now you...
Would it be?
Sorry.
Would it be okay if I just rejoin the link to see if it works?
Can you repeat? I'm sorry.
I said, would it be okay if I just rejoin the entire link to see if that improves it?
You can do that. You can leave the meeting and,
Yes.
and connect again. Maybe
All right,
that, maybe even restart your computer, or, you know,
Yes,
whatever
let me do that.
it may work. Because if you were able to listen to us with the headsets you were trying, the white ones, it's okay. But for some reason, the platform is not taking that selection.
No problem. Let me do that. I'll
Okay,
get back to you now.
thank you, sir. We already have your presentation, so we're ready for you.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral. Que el cierre de brechas, que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos, no podemos ser neutrales.
Mr. Chairman, good morning. Mr. Chairman, the Secretariat confirms that with 20 delegations present here in the Simon Bolivar room, this meeting, this regular session of the Permanent Council, has the required statutory quorum to begin. Thank you.
Good morning. Following verification of the quorum by the Secretariat, I have the honor to declare open this joint session of the Permanent Council and the Inter-American Council for Integral Development in accordance with the mandate set forth in paragraph 6 of Section 6 of General Assembly Resolution 3028 for the development of a dialogue on the challenges and needs of social protection, lessons learned, and good practices, according to the draft agenda contained in the document CP/OD 2545/25, which, in compliance with the provisions of Article 43 of the Rules of Procedure of the Permanent Council, I submit for your consideration. As there are no comments, then we will approve the draft agenda. Approved. Before proceeding, I would like to express my gratitude to Ambassador Luann Gilchrist, Permanent Representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and President of CD, with whom I share the honor of presiding over our deliberations today. I also thank the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development and the OAS Department of Social Inclusion for their support in organizing this meeting. I greet and welcome our special guests, experts in this field. We thank everyone for participating in today's meeting. I now turn over to the co-chair of this session, Ambassador Luann Gilchrist, for her opening remarks and presentation of the second agenda item. Ambassador Gilchrist, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Belli, and good morning to all. Esteemed colleagues, today's joint meeting takes place under an important mandate established by the General Assembly through its Resolution 3028 on the promotion and protection of human rights, with a particular focus on increasing inclusive social protection and opportunities in the Americas. At a time when our region continues to face significant challenges related to poverty, inequality, and food insecurity, this dialogue offers a crucial opportunity to exchange lessons learned, share best practices, and reinforce our collective commitment to building stronger and more inclusive social protection systems. Strengthening these systems is essential, not only for advancing sustainable development, but also for safeguarding human rights and promoting democratic stability throughout the hemisphere. We are also honored to welcome the distinguished panelists who have joined us today to share their knowledge and experiences. Their contributions will undoubtedly enrich our discussions and provide valuable insights as we move forward. I encourage all delegations to participate actively in today's dialogue and to share their national experiences and to explore opportunities for cooperation that will allow us to strengthen social protection systems and promote inclusive development across our region. To begin this important dialogue, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Fabio Vera Suarez, coordinator of the Interim Support Team of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, and researcher at the International Policy Center for Inclusive Development at the Institute for Applied Economic Research of Brazil. Dr. Soares, thank you for your presence today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ambassador. I will speak in Portuguese. Excelentíssimo Senhor.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Benoni, Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS, Ambassador Luann Gilchrist, Chair of the Inter-American Commission for Integral Development, ladies and gentlemen, permanent representative alternates, and observers. I'm very honored to participate in this joint session, which recognizes social protection as an imperative pillar for sustainable development, as well as an exchange of experiences and good practices as a fundamental vehicle to improve public policies in the region. It was with this spirit that at the end of 2023, Brazil launched a meeting of the G20 and the summit of the G20 and the proposal for alliance against poverty and hunger. This is an international initiative which is to support and speed up efforts to eradicate poverty and hunger, and at the same time reduce inequalities. OECD, SAN, as well as form alliances in the world, and to promote all of the other objectives in sustainable development, which are interrelated and crucial, promoting sustainable transitions, inclusive and fair ones. The alliance, based on a clear-cut diagnosis, and that is that the world is not doing enough to reach the goals, living in food insecurity and poverty. These things cannot wait. This was conceived to support countries in the implementation across a wide area with proved policies for income increase, school programs, and family food programs. These are programs that are the crux of the alliance, with about 50% of policies that are part of the set of instruments that were evaluated rigorously and providing resources by the Global Alliance aimed at high-impact initiatives and effective results. The alliance is structured according to three pillars. The national pillar, this is the pillar where the countries are committed to adopt policies that fight poverty and hunger, but also to help other countries in the implementation of similar policies. The financial pillar, here we've got national resources and international resources, both public and private, that are pulled together to adopt a scaling and an improvement of these policies. And then finally, knowledge and strengthening of knowledge and sharing of experiences and better practices. The OAS is part of the alliance with a commitment to strengthen this pillar, facilitating learning in the region, especially through the Inter-American Network of Social Protection. In just 5 months, the Global Alliance has more than 180 members between governments, international organizations, development banks, and foundations. In addition to the OAS itself as an international organization, 19 member countries of the organization also joined the alliance. The most recent is Ecuador that came in this past Monday. We can invite those countries that have not yet joined to do so. Social protection is at the center of eradicating undernourishment, poverty, and hunger, and to protect the most vulnerable, to deal with shocks and promote social inclusion and social protection. Various instruments that have been developed to have these social programs throughout the region, and these are examples for the entire world in pulling in different interventions and allowing for an approach which is much more systemic in fighting poverty and hunger. These differences show that it is possible to use international domestic resources as best as possible with more scaling, more impact, and more focus. We know that, for example, the transfer of income promotes better other indicators, reduces poverty, and also moves with local development. This is easy to understand with some social return. Now, I would like to underscore that when we talk about hunger, we're not just talking about humanitarian assistance. No, we're talking about all forms of poverty and hunger and security with an approach that pulls together nutrition, productive or fruitful production. And the alliance can be used as an alliance for regional and multilateral areas, also within the framework of the Organization of American States. It can follow up, scale things up, public policies, connecting governments, international partnerships, and civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a time of crisis, but it's also a time of opportunities and cooperation, which can transform everything. The Global Alliance is just kicking off, but it was there to generate impact to 2030 with a political focus, technical assistance, and mobilization of resources. We hope that the region will be in the forefront of these initiatives, and we will move in with more fair social protection systems which are resilient and efficient. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insightful presentation, Dr. Suarez. Now I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Betilde Munoz-Pogosian, Director of the Department of Social Inclusion of the OAS General Secretariat. Director Munoz-Pogosian, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. With your permission, I would like to begin by expressing my sincere thanks to the authorities of the Permanent Council and the Inter-American Council for Integral Development City for giving us this opportunity to share the institutional initiatives that, through the OAS and also through our Department of Social Inclusion, has spearheaded when it comes to social protection, especially through the Inter-American Network for Social Protection, RISO, and the recent project for recommencing dialogue, which is here with us as we celebrate this International Week. The Social Protection Network, RISO, is the main mechanism for technical hemispheric cooperation to promote an exchange of knowledge, experiences, and best practices when it comes to social protection in the Americas. The network was established in 2019, given the mandate of the Summit of the Americas and the Ministers of Social Development, with a view to promoting cooperation amongst those who craft public policies, academicians, and professionals, so as to deal with the regional challenges such as poverty and inequality. During the initial period after it was launched, the network established solid alliances with more than 40 different organizations. It promoted more than 20 technical seminars and cooperation projects in 23 countries. It created the first virtual regional platform for learning, exchange on social protection systems with more than 2,000 resources and more than 5,000 active users, and trained more than 1,000 professionals through social protection systems and programs in the Americas. Nonetheless, despite these challenges, the network has come up against challenges, given a dearth in financing, which affected continuity and particularly the scaling up or expansion of its work in this current context, underscored by the follow after or sequels of COVID-19 and the sociopolitical and environmental issues. To strengthen an inter-American network for social protection is more crucial than ever. Luckily, that's how it was understood, and this was understood by member states who decided to reactivate the network. In point of fact, the Inter-American Declaration of Priorities when it comes to social development, adopted in 2022 in the Dominican Republic, as well as resolution of the last General Assembly on promotion and protection of human rights, which is what brings us together today. It all reaffirms support to reactivate this network, recognizing it as a germane mechanism for technical cooperation in the hemisphere. As the technical secretariat of the network, and also with the support of the 15 member states that participate actively in the Inter-American Meeting of Social Development, CIDI, we have spearheaded a project to reactivate this network as a mechanism for cooperation which continues to be sui generis in the region. And I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to thank the government of the United States of America for the financial support that has made it possible to renew and reactivate this very valuable network. This project, with activities that began to get off the ground in 2024 and will last until 2026. Very briefly, among the recent achievements of this new stage, I can underscore implementation of a round of technical cooperation amongst our peers, experts of Chile, Costa Rica, and Paraguay. They supported the update of the national policies in disabilities, the methodologies of our colleagues in the Department of Effective Public Management, and this at low cost. This was truly valued given the results. 100% of all participants considered it relevant and very useful, and the Minister of Social Development of Guatemala himself underscored that this exchange of peers would impact in terms of modernizing that country's national policies. Another recent achievement, training of 190 some odd professionals of 22 countries through the technical workshop, Care and Reduction of Poverty last November. In addition to other evaluations and positive results, 90% of the participants, I believe, or they believe, that the workshop is very useful to upgrade their knowledge and that shared experience would benefit their own institutional work. And then lastly, the establishment and kickoff of the new webpage for an exchange of knowledge and regional cooperation when it comes to social protection. In the next stage, we will work in the next few activities to implement, which will have 2 rounds of cooperation and technical assistance among peers, including and involving more than 6 countries, a new version of social protection systems in the Americas, and the technical workshop designing policies for social development from the standpoint of disabilities, which will take place next Wednesday, 7th of May, for which I should like to invite all of you now. From the standpoint of Social Inclusion Department, through the network, we work with the firm commitment to strengthen capacities, institutional wherewithal for social policies in the region, moving ahead with technical assistance amongst peers as a key pillar for mutual assistance, mutual knowledge, and continued work. This work, of course, underscores the commitment made by the OAS when it comes to poverty in the Americas and the efforts that are being made from the Working Group on Poverty and Social Exclusion, as well as its role as a founding member of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, spearheaded by Brazil, reaffirming once again our commitment to a coordinated response, one that underscores cooperation and based on evidence to eradicate poverty and reduce inequalities in the Americas. Today, more so than ever, the reactivation of the network is a strategic fulcrum for more inclusive development and regional cooperation, which is more solid in the Americas. This network is not just a technical instrument, it's a live platform for hemispheric solidarity, which has shown concrete results. Its own capacity to strengthen public policies, generate learning amongst countries, and to provide effective responses in the face of the persistent challenges such as poverty, exclusion, and inequalities on a structural level. Once again, we renew our commitment to the network with the necessary resources. This means to invest in a more fair, resilient, and future centered on people so that no one is left behind. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you for your valuable contribution, Madam Director. Next, I'm pleased to invite Dr. Cheney Saint-Martin, International Technical Specialist in Water and Soil Management at the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, representing Ms. Katia Fajardo, who was initially scheduled to join us, but who, due to scheduling conflicts, was unable to be with us this morning. Dr. Saint-Martin, we thank you for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just confirming that you heard me clearly.
We are. Thank you very much.
Right. I will just ask for the slide to be, the presentation to be placed up. Right, so colleagues, thank you for the invitation. I hope you've seen it here. We just wanted to present a snapshot of some of the work, the food security issues in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we wanted to really pivot it from a social protection point of view. Next slide. One of the first things that is very evident for us, and we particularly entitled this Beyond the Statistics, while the statistics speak very strongly in terms of, we know that there is an issue about 30% of the population in the Latin America Caribbean region is classified as moderate to severe food insecurity. We know that when we look at the statistics and we decouple the Caribbean from that mix, we are seeing even a graver issue, a graver picture in terms of the severity, or if one would say the crisis here. We are seeing that elevates to almost 60% of the population being classified as moderate to severe food insecurity. And when we further examine that data, we are seeing that there's a higher, almost 10% prevalence of that food insecurity among women and other vulnerable groups. And we are seeing one of the major drivers of that food insecurity is the income inequality, meaning that countries that have lower incomes are twice as risk of having higher food insecurity levels. But also what we see is a major fact, which is the issue of food imports. We are seeing for the Caribbean region, English-speaking Caribbean region, we are seeing that this is amounting to about $6 to $7 billion annually. And the sad part of that is when you look at the trade balance vis-a-vis what is being exported in terms of the revenue, you're seeing almost a ratio of 7 to 5. What that means essentially is that we every $7 that we spend on we receive from exports, we are spending $25 on imports. And that is not only at the country level, it really shows its face at the household level as well. So you could imagine what is happening there. Every dollar earned, it's almost like $25 is lost. We are seeing one of the major drivers as well for a number of reasons, a number of shocks, whether it's economic and non-economic shocks. We are seeing that issue of 30% increase in food prices, particularly in countries like Suriname, that is also affecting the access to food. But colleagues, beyond the issue of the food, the statistics, and perhaps not so much in this room is perhaps skewed, we are seeing that 1 in every 3 to 5 human beings not having enough food to eat. That is the reality on the ground. We are seeing more so, these are not normally collected, but we are seeing families skipping meals. We are seeing the size of the meals being reduced, the profile of the meals being altered, and we are seeing definitely the effect of how it goes down to kids in school and during the different pursuits, sports, etc. We are also seeing that affecting the issue with farmers as well and their livelihood there. So this is the reality of what we are seeing as it relates to food and nutrition security. Next slide, please. That is, and this is the important fact, if that was not enough, we are seeing that when we have these severe cascading shocks, for example, in Dominica, when we had the Hurricane Maria, we are seeing that almost the entire economy, 226% of the GDP, is lost because of these cascading shocks. We are seeing the effect on agriculture, which is the supply, or could be the supply, the food supply engine as it relates to food security. It's not that it is grim and we have not tried something. We are seeing that when we even look at land use or soil, we are seeing that we also have some problems with soil, or technically as part of the solution. And I have some statistics there in terms of the degradation of the soil. Next slide. And I wanted to zone in on that because we have so far addressed food and nutrition security through a technical cooperation or technical asset building. A study that we did in Dominica really shocked us and showed us something different. While we noted that about 50% of the households are still recovering from the shocks, and we are seeing that the issue of household resilience was related to crop diversity and literacy levels and the amount of assets, which most of us know. What we did not expect in terms of that was that the low resilience of the households were associated with accessing basic services, infrastructure, and also social safety networks. So that for us was a major finding there in terms of how we have been addressing or framing the response to food insecurity and how we perhaps needed to refocus. What it really showed us is that perhaps equal focus must be placed to not just the technical, the agronomy part of it, the marketing part of it, but also the issue of social protection and social inclusion as a means of enhancing the resilience in agriculture and overall nation resilience. So that was a very crude take home for us. Next slide. So when we look at this, this was very interesting, and we said, okay, we need to start framing our mind in terms of a greater inclusion of social protection measures, in terms of greater attention to social inclusion. What we realized, we scanned the data, we scanned what was happening, and we realized that over these times, more than 94 social protection measures were implemented with various levels of success and also different profiles as it relates to the country. But what we are seeing is that the normal just subsidies alone, they were not as effective as targeted cash transfers. And that again was another eye opener in terms of perhaps the way forward when we build initiatives, when we establish policy, a simple policy as even protecting the soils or the inputs that lead to the production, or simple policies that just says nobody goes to bed home hungry. We saw that for us to better frame the issue of the food insecurity in the Caribbean, in the Latin American region, there's a need for stronger social protection system. There's a need to start thinking of initiatives that promote greater investment in local agriculture and also hemispheric agriculture. But we also saw that the same malady of the data collection, particularly the granularity of it, needs attention. And that is very important in terms of targeting. Who are we targeting? What we're doing? The evidence base is very critical as it relates to that point. And so another call for action would also be to foster greater hemispheric collaboration. And I think that this is one of the strongest points that the OAS could really contribute on in terms of a way forward. But the take-home message was very clear. Food security is not only about food, it is also about the dignity, justice, and also the opportunities that are there to improve lives as a whole. So lastly, having seen that and knowing the context, you will see in the last slide, ICA is really much positioned to continue what we are doing in terms of our mandate for assisting through technical cooperation service of excellence in agriculture development and rural well-being. We continue at different levels, both at the voice, the high political level, to actually be that advocate for agriculture, rural well-being, and vulnerable groups, for the voice of the farmers. At the political, at the country level, we continue to try to assist our member countries in developing these plans, translating some of these findings into action. And we definitely continue to do our work in strategies and mechanisms through the programs that we have. So colleagues, this is what I wanted to just share with you in a very brief way. I thank you very much for the opportunity to present on behalf of the institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saint-Martin, for your informative and instructive remarks. Finally, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Vanessa Garcia-Larson, Chief of the Risk Factors and Nutrition Unit at the Pan American Health Organization. Dr. Garcia-Larson, thank you for your participation. The floor is yours.
I don't see the... Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for the opportunity to be here with you all to talk about food poverty and to have this important dialogue Mr. Ambassador Benoni Belli, thank you. Madam President Luann Gilchrist, thank you very much on behalf of Dr. Jabas Barbosa, on behalf of the Pan American Health Organization. This is a critical topic for us all because it addresses, as Dr. San Martin was saying before me, the critical issue of food insecurity, poverty, and the human story behind it. So I'm going to offer just a brief overview of where we are in the Americas in terms of food insecurity, poverty, and malnutrition. And although current data indicates a slight decrease in the prevalence of food insecurity in the region of the Americas, we know that vulnerable populations continue to be disproportionately affected, especially rural populations of indigenous and Afro-descendant origin. Both for moderate and severe food insecurity, we see a slight decrease over the past 5 years. And this, however, goes hand in hand with the fact that healthy diets remain out of reach for many, particularly in low and middle-income countries, and among populations experiencing high levels of food insecurity. The global cost of healthy diets has continued to rise. According to the Panorama report from 2024, Latin America and the Caribbean reported the highest cost of a healthy diet globally, at $4.56 per person per day. In the Caribbean sub-region, half of the population was unable to afford a healthy diet. And therefore, poverty significantly limits access to nutritious and healthy foods, contributing to both obesity and undernutrition. In addition, out-of-pocket expenditures by individuals living with obesity and non-communicable diseases represent a major barrier in accessing health services and can drive households into poverty. The other side of the situation is the increasing prevalence of obesity that we have observed in the region of the Americas over the past 50 years, which currently sits at 67.5% in the entire region. Currently, the countries with the highest prevalence of obesity are Chile, Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, Puerto Rico, Mexico, Belize, and the United States of America. Now, we know that obesity is a key driver of non-communicable diseases and an independent risk factor for premature mortality, an issue that involves the entire population of the Americas. At the end of 2024, the WHO and FAO issued a joint statement outlining the core principles of a healthy diet, which is one that is characterized by being rich in whole grains, vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, and low in salt, free sugars, and fats. However, in the context of poverty, adhering to these principles remains a major challenge. Poverty limits the availability, accessibility, and affordability of nutritious foods, making it difficult for individuals and families to meet the required standards for what we consider a healthy diet, further increasing and perpetuating the burden of non-communicable diseases. And this diagram here offers some actions that the Pan American Health Organization is leading to address food insecurity and promote healthy diets in close cooperation with the member states in the region. First of all, the promotion of fiscal policies that are going to lead to an increase in the cost of unhealthy foods, but subsidies in the cost of healthy foods such as fruits and vegetables. There is also close cooperation with various member states, including and also with OAS, to promote food security, ensuring access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food as a critical pathway to promoting healthy lifestyles and reducing the risk of non-communicable diseases. There is also strategies on public food procurement and service policies, and food fortification efforts that are currently underway in several countries. Of course, all this is in the context of what we call transformation of food systems, and this means addressing the issue of food insecurity, poverty, and malnutrition in using a holistic approach that addresses all the components involved in the production, commercialization, purchase, and consumption of foods. And here we have 5 key domains that we promote, and they include the pivotal statement of ensuring access to safe and nutritious food for all, promoting a shift to sustainable consumption patterns, which is a major challenge, boost nature-positive production, that it's climate change friendly, advance equitable livelihoods, and building resilience to vulnerability, shocks, and stress. I'd like to stop there to open the floor for opportunities to discuss all these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia Larson, for your presentation and input. We also extend our sincere appreciation to all of our panelists for their insightful contributions and presentations. As the next item on the agenda, I am pleased to give the floor to the Chair of the Permanent Council to present his question to the panel. Ambassador Belli, the floor is yours.
Obrigado, Embaixadora Gilchrist.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gilchrist. I have 2 questions, one to Dr. Fabio Vera Suarez and the other to Dr. Batilde Munoz. First of all, let me address Dr. Fabio Vera Suarez. Might you please elaborate on the activities that are linked to the Global Alliance? Even though we don't yet have a secretariat set up that is somehow directly linked with FAO, the fact of the matter is measures are being taken, things are coming along, and we will be hearing more about this as we move forward when the Secretariat will actually have been hired and fully structured. But the question to Dr. Batilde Munoz is as follows. Given that there are various multilateral mechanisms that work on this, social protection in the regional, you have CEPAL, the IDB, the World Bank, obviously, the global table on its own, that aim to improve these systems, and that is what I'm homing in on now. What kind of synergy could OAS add to the mix? Dr. Fabio, if you will, first. Thank you, Ambassador. Well, one important issue, it seems to me, and that, by the way, that was one of the concerns we have at the end of the G20, and when we were talking about how we were going to deal with poverty, is that it was taking an awfully long time to really bring the countries into it and generate a demand, as is often the case and is the case when they join the alliance. And so the Brazilian government decided to set up a temporary, provisional, internal mechanism in order to get these, get the ball rolling, as it were. And back in November of last year, when the G20 met in Rio de Janeiro, a number of the countries that were already linked to the alliance had already made pledges and were looking for cooperation that would move the ball forward. This was in the 2030 agenda. But at the time, that interim commission that involves colleagues from various elements of the Brazilian government, the Institute on Applied Economic Research, as well as various other key, have generated requests. We are working with 13 different countries, and let me underscore that includes Haiti, which our colleague from ICA had mentioned, and the Dominican Republic. We're working on the elaboration of a plan of implementation of the programs, or a restructuring, if you will, of those programs, improvement of it, on the basis of the requests that we have been noting since November last year. From the standpoint of the Food and Agriculture Organization that is right involved with the Global Alliance, there are 13 positions, but that will be in Rome, headquarters of FAO, as everybody knows. And it includes a number of different items, including one position here, by the way, that will be dealing with and connections with the various development banks and international entities as well. FAO is going to launch this very soon with interviews, and I hope that by the second half of this year, we may have moved happily down the line and moved the process forward. But this is all going to be an important part of the support mechanism that FAO is setting up to this end. Thank you very much. Thank you, says the chair. Dr. Betilda has the floor. Well, thank you for your question. It is right on the nose. There are many multilateral organizations that are working on the question of social protection in the region. But to complement, to add to what we're already doing in the OAS, we have thought that, frankly, perhaps the best thing we can do is to see how we can shore up and complement efforts that are already being made with regard to social policies, and really focus on the value added of the OAS, which has to do with the inter-Paris connections. I said this in my communique. This is really much through BISO, but also through the methodology that is well known by our effective public financing. It's MESI-HEP by the acronym. And using the MESI-HEP methodology, we are making sure that between and among countries, we can aim for mechanisms that are low cost and high impact. That's the name of the game. Low cost, high impact. Because there, countries can focus on their own specific project, but focus on what works and not fall back into what maybe doesn't. This, of course, spells a better use of public funds. This, of course, is a complement to what we do at the OAS. We have our own value added, as we know. We put major issues on the regional agenda. We focus on social reforms on the basis of firm grounding. And we draw on a diversity of experiences so that everybody can benefit, and also look to a scalable means by which everybody can benefit. From this standpoint, OAS therefore not only facilitates the matter, but we systematize the subject. We make them known. We spread the good word, as it will, so that more people can jump on the wagon. From RIPSO, we focus particularly on the regional commitments of the OAS. I already mentioned this in my own statement on the Manifest Against Poverty and the group that was set up within the framework of the Permanent Council, but also as a founding alliance of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, which Dr. Fabio spelled out. This also goes very much to capacity building. It is a value added that is well worth it because it comes to add to what is already underway and undergird these efforts and expand them. Now, sometimes there are budget restrictions, and so this model of cooperation among equals has proven itself. This is good at the international level. We have sometimes even helped, we think, to put better order in these and also aim to areas of systems, social support systems that are more effective. We're working at a regional level in a manner that we hope will draw a way of going from the theory to the practice in social policy in a manner that makes a difference.
I'm now pleased to direct a question to the two panelists, Dr. Cheney Saint-Martin and Dr. Vanessa Garcia Larson. And I'd ask you please to respond in that order. And this is the question. As we advance to the milestone year of 2030, there remain gaps in the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Gaps exacerbated by the climate crisis and the psychosocial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As organs of the OAS, what opportunities exist within your respective programs of work for fostering greater cooperation with member states on strengthening the fight against food insecurity, hunger, poverty? And what opportunities are there for building health systems that are more inclusive and resilient? Over to you, please, Dr. Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. At least what we are seeing through ICA, we are definitely seeing that the opportunities must be, the way that we address opportunities is what is important. It must be systematic. So for example, strategically, we have seen that placing emphasis on all 3 points of the triangle, what we call the triangle, strategic triangle, is very important. We continue to see that we must continue to raise the voices at international high political level. They are rooted in some of the Sustainable Development Goals and some of the conferences and conventions. We must continue advocating for the voice of the vulnerable and also agriculture and the farmers there, whether it's in food systems, whether it is any of the conventions in terms of desertification. But we must couple that with action at a national and hemispheric level by collaboration. So the collaboration and partnership for us in terms of both public and private collaboration is very important, particularly as it relates to not only the introduction of technology, but also for reaching people and a more inclusive approach in addressing some of these problems. So the strategies and the opportunities that we see, how we respond to it, we respond to it in terms of rooting ourselves into these higher level political discussions, ensuring that that is reciprocated or translated into the country level in terms of the various plans and the policies, and more importantly, ensuring that that 3 point, the last point, is that we have definite action on the ground, particularly as it relates to agriculture development and also rural well-being. We see tremendous opportunity through the OAS in continuing on some of the existing work that ICA has been doing, particularly with ICA has the action of boots on the ground. We are in all of the 35 countries, 44 member countries, and so therefore we have a long history of brokering between different partners, both academic and also development, and we have a long history of working with the persons to ensure that these opportunities at these various points, we continue to be aware of it, but more importantly, translate it into action through that mechanism that I just described. So in summary, these are what we are seeing. We are seeing opportunities at all of these 3 levels, but so therefore the strategy that we are implementing must also reflect what we are seeing and how we are trying to transform what is happening on the ground. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saint-Martin. I now offer the floor to Dr. Vanessa Garcia-Lassen.
Gracias, señora presidenta.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for that question. Well, indeed, we are very much aware that we are not yet fulfilling the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal objectives. We're not there yet. And that is why we need to do better from the standpoint of the Pan American Health Organization, do more through technical assistance. And part of what we're doing is focusing on the hemispheric program on policies in healthy food and other elements that will help us consolidate our efforts and get a better bang for the buck, as it were, from an intersectoral standpoint, either we within PAHO or other groups that are dealing with public education and public action in general. It makes a great deal of difference to do more in schools with healthy food. Children have to learn to eat in a healthy manner, and it's up to the adults to make sure that what's out there and what they are in fact ingesting is good and will lead to optimum health. As has already been mentioned in the panel, this, we believe, has a double benefit. It doesn't cost much, and it does a lot. So efforts that will also improve people's understanding, education, will do a great deal. Again, the Pan American Health Organization, which of course is an antenna of the World Health Organization, we have reactivated a program to speed up the tremendous tendency toward obesity. This includes a very important technical package that includes generating healthy environments, offering healthier food, and taking a good look at legislation and regulations that will shore up the chance that we can, in fact, do those good things. Not going to fall from the sky. And anybody who isn't playing ball should be paying higher taxes, and we should be, in fact, focusing on them as well. To that end, there has to be, we believe, better and more fluid policy dialogues, again, that go to a health framework, legal framework that will make the difference. Certainly among children, there has to be free and secure access to food that will give the kids a chance to eat in a healthy manner. Now, what we know is that when children go to school, mainly they eat well at school, the proper kind of food, and their nutritional development, no surprise, is better. And the fight against obesity has a greater chance. So it's a win-win. So intersectoral approaches, we think, is the way to go. You have to pronounce education, promote a political dialogue, a policy dialogue, and a hemispheric environment, particularly focused on the schools, that will make a big difference, we believe, in fighting obesity. And this very much linked to the fact that so many of the development programs and the health programs are not being met.
I would like to thank our distinguished guests for participating in today's meeting and for sharing their perspectives on this important dialogue. Now, I am pleased to give the floor to the Chair of the Permanent Council to conduct the next item on the agenda. Ambassador Belli, the floor is yours.
Muito obrigado, embaixadora.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Next, I want to offer the floor to those who may wish to take the floor on this matter. The floor is yours, ladies and gentlemen. The permanent representative for Colombia, Luis Ernesto Vargas, is recognized. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair and Madam Chair, let me begin by thanking you both for convening this very useful joint meeting, number one, and second, for choosing such an issue as we have before us. Could not be more important. Thanks also to the panelists for what they have offered. One of the greatest commitments of Gustavo Petro's government in Colombia is to eradicate hunger and poverty in Colombia. Now, that target demands immediate measures and structured measures. That's why he has focused on territorial justice and means by which we can follow the 2030 agenda. The Colombian state has launched reforms that prioritizes the redistribution of resources, budget and fiscal justice that will focus on the growth of these social programs, but without hinging that only on economic growth per se. The president has launched a very, very ambitious head-on attack on what needs to be fought and on how we can go directly to agriculture groups, farmers groups, so that we can avoid intermediaries who never help and always worse. Other measures, but through the program, 1,600,000 have emerged from rural poverty, and 1,500,000 have now gone beyond food insecurity. With regard to social and economic justice, The country has developed a model based on restructuring of the programs that already exist. So we're working with what we've got, but to do better, very much focused on action to help needy families so that the most vulnerable communities won't be left behind through cash support, which will serve as a safety net, as it were, for moderate and low-income groups, those who are in the informal levels of society. Those transfers through what we call ingreso solidario, solidarity income, is of about $120, which is targeting mothers who have a risk of children who will suffer malnutrition. The present government has also focused on the digitalization of public services and community services to bring into an area that has been traditionally forgotten, and that is those families that are most in need. Little boys, little girls, adolescents, and adults, training them from day one in school, but focused on strategies that will, in the long run, make a difference. In the labor area, we're focusing on the promotion of sustainable and dignified work, focusing also on strategic sectors like the green economy and the agro-ecological measures we can take. Gustavo Petro, our president, has therefore taken these measures to ensure that a difference can be made and that human rights will be met through these various different means and the economy without, however, depending completely or exclusively on the GDP. Let me just close by saying that while Colombia has come a fair piece, we do recognize that there are gaps that we have yet to, in fact, bridge. And all I can say is that all of the program's success will very much depend on how we work within our country, but also internationally. And that is why Colombia calls on us here as an international group, so that together we can do better to help our people as a whole. Thank you.
Canada has the floor, Ambassador. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman and Mr. Chairman. We would like to thank the presenters for their sterling interventions on this very important issue, both internationally, regionally, as well as otherwise. It is crucial and imperative to continue to work together to create a more just and fair world that deals with poverty, inequality, and food insecurity. Canada is and aligns with the SDGs. Together, our efforts will also aim to create productive employment and improvement when it comes to access to quality education and health, universal health coverage, as well as shoring up power of all girl children as well as women, and an end to a degradation of the environment. We will fight against inequality, protected as we protect each person so that they can prosper. This is the core of many fundamental principles that undergird sustainable development. In English.
Poverty reduction, and to that end provides important supports domestically and internationally to promote social and economic well-being. In 2018, Canada launched a strategy called Opportunity for All, Canada's first poverty reduction strategy. It established an official measurement of poverty, Canada's official poverty line, and set ambitious and concrete poverty reduction targets. Including a 20% reduction in poverty by 2020, which I am happy to say we achieved, and a 50% reduction in poverty by 2030 relative to 2015 levels, which will lead to the lowest poverty rate in Canada's history. In response to calls for long-term commitment to poverty reduction, the Poverty Reduction Act was passed in 2019, supporting continuous efforts towards poverty reduction in Canada, and it to monitor development of that program. Canada recognizes that poverty does not affect everyone equally, and that many Canadians struggle to get ahead due to individual, structural, and systemic barriers, including but not limited to racism and discrimination. That is why we have targeted initiatives in those areas to focus on addressing the specific needs of these groups. Canada also contributes to ensuring that Canadians have access to sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food, and that Canadian agriculture is sustainable. At the regional level, Canada is pleased to partner with the Pan American Health Organization to promote better health outcomes for all of the Americas. Together with PAHO, we have accomplished a long list of important results. These include improving sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as maternal, newborn, and child health, responding to major health and humanitarian emergencies, including post-natural disasters and COVID pandemic, and strengthening integrated health systems. Improving these areas addresses health needs and builds a foundation for social protection and equity. Canada also greatly appreciates our partnership with the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, to promote good practices in agriculture, water management, and climate-resilient food systems. Canada will continue to contribute to collaborative works towards the improvement of social protection and promoting and supporting the eradication of poverty and hunger in this hemisphere. We look forward to collaboration with all of you on that. Thank you, Mr. and Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. St. Vincent of the Grenadines has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Chair of the Permanent Council, Ambassador Benoni Belli, Permanent Representative of Brazil. Chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, Ambassador Luan Gilchrist, Permanent Representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Secretary General, Permanent Representatives, Alternate Representatives, guest panelists, staff at the Secretariat, good morning. Chairs, my delegation extends our deepest gratitude to the panelists for their presence. Their thoughtful contributions have added immense value to this dialogue. We are 5 years away from the horizon of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and it is unlikely that the Sustainable Development Goals to eradicate hunger and poverty will be met by that time. No region is on track to achieve zero hunger by 2030. Almost 700 million people, approximately 8.5% of the global population, live in extreme poverty, living on less than $2.15 per day. Over 600 million people, approximately 7.3% of the global population, are projected to live in extreme poverty in 2030. In low-income countries, today poverty rates are higher than before the pandemic. Out of every 5 people, 1 is at risk of experiencing the effects of an extreme weather event in their lifetime. This sees them facing severe setbacks in their livelihood, thus hampering poverty reduction efforts. Notwithstanding, what can change this trajectory is social protection. Chairs, the COVID-19 pandemic, frequent and costly natural disasters, our vulnerability to climate change, rapid technological innovation, and violence threatens our economic growth and prosperity. These scourges also impact the effectiveness of a country's social protection system, exposing weaknesses in design and inadequate targeting, and most worryingly, they increase the vulnerability of certain sectors of the population. Chairs, rising cost of living, food, fuel, cooking gas, electricity costs threaten our ability to meet basic needs, forcing us to make tough choices, sometimes sacrificing our health and education expenses to meet the more immediate needs. For 29% of this region's population, this is a reality. It's a worrying phenomenon. Chairs, the most important asset of any country is its people. Investing in people-centered social protection programs can help reduce inequalities, hunger, and poverty, and improve health, nutrition, and education. It is therefore critical for nations to strategically focus their development strategies on sustainable, resilient, adaptable, comprehensive, and universal social protection systems underpinned by robust social institutions and financial sustainability. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines has continuously refined its suite of social security programs, expanding their scope and budget to encompass more targeted sustainable interventions to impact those sectors of the population most affected by exogenous shocks. The government is committed to zeroing hunger by 2030 and improving nutrition among the most vulnerable, to the extent that the national authorities are making several interventions through the Zero Hunger Trust Fund. 1. School feeding program, which provides students with nutritious meals at no cost to families. 2. Adopt a Classroom program, which provides students with the resources to attend school regularly and succeed in school. And thirdly, there is the Learning Enhancement and Nutrition Support, LENS program. Other initiatives include the Love Box program, through which the government purchases thousands of pounds of produce from local farmers and distributes them to vulnerable families challenged by food insecurity. There is also income support to farmers and fishers, subsidies on fertilizers and animal feed, eliminating customs service charge on cooking gas, and reducing the excise tax on diesel and gasoline. The government has also allocated millions in cash or in-kind assistance to the Departments of Social Protection, Gender, and Child Development. Chairs, the social protection architecture has to be developed in such a way that availability and access go hand in hand. Barriers such as long payment procedures and registration requiring a lengthy list of supporting documentation from the same target group that may not have them, or waiting in long lines which can affect the elderly and disabled, or having to travel long distances to register or collect income support are just a few of the challenges to overcome to ensure that efforts reach the targeted groups in a timely and effective manner. Chairs, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has joined the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, further indicating its commitment to end hunger and poverty in all their forms. National social protection systems act as stabilizers in times of crisis or during a transition. They help people to adapt and cope. They are life support for those left farthest behind. Together with
I
other
kindly
national
ask
policies,
the delegate
programs,
to conclude its remarks. Thank you very much.
and even international supports, social protection can accelerate poverty reduction, social cohesion, and inclusion. Thank you, chairs.
Mexico has the floor, Ambassador. Thank you, chairs. We have robust social programs focused on people who have rights and giving priority to those groups that have been historically marginalized. The National Plan for Development 2025-2030 is, in and of itself, a broad strategy for social protection and centers on people's well-being. It is the guiding light of the Mexican policy and social justice for prosperity, which is shared and is inclusive, that improves quality of life for each and every person, as well as dignity at work, gender equality, access to education, and to a adequate livelihood, health, and other quality services. A healthy environment and respect for rights of indigenous people and Afro-descendants is also part of our program. As of 2019 to 2024, more than 5 million people came out of poverty in Mexico, and they made significant steps when it comes to historical recovery of minimal salary, a broadening of social rights with universal compensation and scholarships for young people. So much so that in 2024, 30 million families were benefited. Mexico has proposed to keep and broaden this support to the sectors that are very vulnerable, thus guaranteeing their permanent financing by incorporating these benefits, which are binding in our political constitution. These achievements were underscored by the World Bank in their recent report on economic perspectives in the region, where it affirms and says that Mexico is the country in Latin America and the Caribbean where poverty has been reduced the most in the last few years. Of about 7 with more than 9.5 million people who overcame and came out of that condition. This reduction was a result of our strengthening the labor market, of the low rates of unemployment, disappearance of outsourcing, and the increase of 6 points in the real salary, particularly in the low-income populations. The main objective of the government of Mexico in this regard is that by 2030, the minimum salary is enough to buy 2.5 basic baskets of goods, and that people have the resources for well-being programs and reach about 1 billion pesos. We are working with this as a priority, looking at security and food sovereignty with the Mexico Plan, the production of seeds for well-being with 31 programs and 4 national strategies linked to the right to food. This is within an institutional framework so that we can take on head-on obesity and undernourishment. Here, the national government has kicked off a program which is unprecedented when it comes to strengthening good nutrition and to fight against obesity as a public health program, and also supported by the frontal attack on good foodstuffs. In the inter-American context, Mexico has supported all the work done by the Inter-American Commission of Social Development and their ministerial process. Given that we are the chair of this committee between 2017 and 2021, as well as chair of the working group on looking at multidimensional poverty, and we have the first compendium on lessons learned when it comes to measuring multidimensional poverty in the Americas and supporting the Social Protection Inter-American Network as a cooperation mechanism. As regards a specific approach on human rights under this theme or topic, we firmly support the very sterling work carried out by Rodesca. My country financially contributes to the program of public policies to fight against poverty and to have standards to have human rights regarded and respected in the Americas. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Dominican Republic has the floor. Mr. Chairman, our delegation truly values this joint session, which allows us to think about the challenges and the best practices when it comes to social protection. This is a fundamental access to build more equitable societies that are resilient and more equitable. We're also very happy that this dialogue has a line of work based on the Santo Domingo Declaration of 2022 during the 5th Ministers' meeting and high authorities for social development. If we look at the commitments of the 10th Summit of the Americas, which will take place in Punta Cana under the topic Sustainable and Prosperous Shared Prosperity for the Hemisphere. Social protection is not, it's an investment, I should say, for stability and peace. The OAS has a key role to play as a political space on a high level to promote hemispheric consensuses and facilitate technical assistance through mechanisms such as the Inter-American Network for Social Protection. So, pulling together efforts with global initiatives such as the Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty to move towards comprehensive mechanisms based on evidence and data for operationability, the intelligent use of AI, and respect for the quality and trustworthiness of information is both a good practice as well as a challenge. Member states can work together that promote sustainable financing of social policies and a horizontal exchange of good practices, thus mobilizing public, private, and resources as well as technical cooperation. Eradication of poverty and hunger should be looked at as a cross-cutting issue in development programs through strategies such as is the case in the Dominican Republic. We have generated significant impacts when it comes to reduction of poverty and inclusion. Chairs, in the last few years, the Dominican Republic has made firm steps forward implementing innovative policies for social protection. to fight against poverty and hunger. I would like to underscore some of these strategies and some of our best practices. Superate, this is a program for social protection which operates as a guiding light for social development. Superate, under the coordination of the Social Protection Cabinet. This looks at monetary transfers with components that are for health caretaking and response to emergencies, with a focus on the rights of the most vulnerable populations. It comprises various components. Here I should like to underscore Alimenta, and this benefits more than 1.3 million homes with condition transfers for buying foodstuffs. The emergency bonus, this is a temporary program for vulnerable homes that are affected by critical situations such as natural disasters, economic shocks, or other disturbances. We have had transfers for schooling to ensure the system and have handed out cards with chips. The Dominican Republic implements a national policy for care with a view to taking into account co-responsibility and gender, which is a right, and we promote access to this program, particularly for people that are dependent. And at the same time, we try to professionalize all the work and alleviate the burden that falls on the backs of women. The program Opportunity 2024 promotes socioeconomic inclusion of adolescents and young people between 14 to 24 years of age, and are linked to the labor educational system with an integral approach, which is participatory and community-oriented. These things will break exclusion cycles and prevent violence. Another innovation is the model of all-encompassing attention for women called Centro de Desarrollo for Women, with a view to economic autonomy, reproductive health, and protection against violence. This intersectoral approach looks at regional mandates so that we can move towards a culture of care. These policies not only have shown an impact in the life of people, but have also contributed to reducing poverty by 18.8% and extreme poverty by 2.4% in 2024. And then finally, social protection and its most deep dimension is to guarantee peace, stability, and democratic practices. And that's why we reiterate our commitment by the Dominican Republic to continue to make strides to move ahead with more inclusive systems, focus on people without leaving anybody behind. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you very much. Brazil has the floor. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman and Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I should like to convey our special thanks to the delegation of Brazil, to the panelists, Dr. Fabio Vera Soares, Dr. Munoz Potosian, Dr. Chan Saint-Martin, and Dr. Vanessa Garcia Larson. Each and every one with their own perspective have given us a very varied panorama of experience and best practices, as well have looked at the challenges for social protection. Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, social protection and the fight against hunger and poverty are priorities that cannot wait in the Americas. And thus, along this line, in this joint session, we really have to look at and get together the two main councils of the OAS for an agenda of solidarity based on looking at inequality. We would like to have a clarion call. We have to pull our efforts together so that we can offer effective programs and look at the quality of life of most vulnerable people. Brazil underscores particularly working with others in the region and the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. And similarly, we are members of this initiative and all the other organizations in the inter-American system that are represented. I would like to avail myself of the opportunity to reiterate to member states and observers here at the OAS that are not yet part of the alliance to please do so. Chairs, this session happened at a time of official slashing of assistance, and particularly programs that fight hunger and poverty. The OAS is going through moments of insecurity in terms of the sustainability of their own projects and their wherewithal to hand over more rights for more people. In the face of the long-lasting impact of COVID-19 and climate crisis and the global economic insecurities, once again, we are absolutely sure there's no time nor is there any money to lose. In this organization, as in others, the initiatives should work efficiently and strategically, thus guaranteeing that the resources available are applied in a most impactful way. We underscore the value of initiatives such as the Global Alliance, the focus of which is on the implementation on a grand scale of public policies. The effectiveness has been looked at and is time or worn and tried and true. We look at a multiplication of efforts on additional resources. So here, it's really very important to value, insofar as possible, all of the structures and mandates that already exist. In the case of the OAS, ministers' meetings for social development and the Inter-American Committee for Social Development have to be borne in mind. Thank you very much. Costa Rica has the floor. Good morning, chairs. Costa Rica values holding this very relevant joint session. We reaffirm our commitment to continue to work across the board with member states in favor of establishing fair and peaceful societies. And as such, we thank the panelists for the very sterling comments and presentations. This session is held and is characterized, I'm sorry, says the speaker, this meeting is being held in a context characterized by persistent world challenges such as the health challenges, poverty and hunger, as well as looking at some of the asymmetries and the gaps in countries and throughout the region. This makes it very difficult to make strides ahead towards achieving the development goals. Well, today, as has been underscored by ECLAC in the document called Social Panorama, more than 180 million people live in poverty and more than 33 million people deal with multidimensional deprivation. And that is why not only do we have the political responsibility, but moral responsibility also to act decisively. Costa Rica recognized the importance of having social protection systems across the board, which are permanent and based on the cycle of life, as has been underscored in this session. We feel that these systems should not be limited to active program, but should also prevent and transform the structural conditions that perpetrate inequality. From our experience, investment in public education and universal health are fundamental pillars for slashing poverty and an improvement in social well-being. Nonetheless, to guarantee sustainability and these achievements, we do have to have social protection systems provided for historically sidelined populations, rural communities, indigenous people, and people with disabilities. So along that line, then, my delegation would like to underscore the following aspects. First, we make a clarion call to implement and carry on international cooperation with different alliances. It's crucial to have the traditional development needs and that we look at per capita needs to exclusively use these indicators. Countries will have to look at transition towards development and will continue to be excluded from support if they don't do otherwise. This would be a loss of valuable chances to help populations in addition to having the wherewithal to do so. Second, we prioritize a human rights approach, public policies across the board, and innovation and management. I would like to underscore some of our achievements. Care and development for children. This was created with the view to establishing a system of caretaking for children with solid basis, looking at the different ways of public and private caretaking and development for children, thus scaling up the alternatives for attention across the board. And then also the program ANSAM looks to promote academic integration and avoid people dropping out from vulnerable homes. We would look at reintegration of the educational system for children between 12 and 24 years of age with a view to economic support that thus guarantees their educational cycles and so that they can continue their studies in primary and secondary schools. This program has slashed dropouts in rural areas and promoted social mobility and looks at other kinds of care. On the other hand, we express our thanks to the Department of Social Inclusion for underscoring the participation of Costa Rica in the first round of cooperation and technical aspects. We look at our country to promote consultative dialogue and exchange of best practices with everybody. We feel that these spaces for cooperation are a very valuable tool to strengthen public policies that are inclusive and sustainable. Mr. Chairman, chairs. To conclude, then, I should like to reiterate the firm commitment my delegation has to strengthen systems of social protection that are not the privilege of a few, but is a right guaranteed for everyone. We truly appreciate and need social protection systems which are democratic and fair across the board. Thank you very much.
Palavra, delegação da Guatemala.
Guatemala is recognized. Thank you, chairs. And Miori Guatemala hails the progress that has been made and the progress that is down to the OAS for a country such as our own, frankly, with such worrisome indices of poverty and extreme poverty. These measures are particularly welcome, and we understand that they must be in fact, buttressed such that we can, in fact, guarantee them. When we set up our program, Guatemala Through 32, we set forth our vision that goes, in fact, initially from 2024 to 2028, at which heart is a sovereign and efficient state. The policies of the government is very much focused on the reestablishment and protection of the rights of people particularly vulnerable, the elderly, boys and girls, people with disabilities. Within the framework for the decade for the Afro-descendants, we focus very much on disaggregated data and focus particularly on how different population groups require different measures. We have a Creole and an Afro-Métis group that is the focus of beneficiaries of our social programs, most especially. We also have focused on key issues such as public or social luncheon rooms and general nutritional and health support, like CESAM, that's the group of ours that works on that. Civil society, private and public groups. This multi-sectoral coordination is in fact rooted in our major crusade against malnutrition that aims specifically to help people in poverty or extreme poverty. With the window of 2010 and onwards, more than 10,000 people have been benefiting from this. On the other hand, there are quite urgent needs that have spurred us to take on urgent measures for those who particularly aim at migrants who haven't been cared for, work, Social Security, and numbers of other important state activities. Sir, we recognize that to speak of sustainable development, we cannot do so without thinking clearly about the regional, the local, the international. We look to work with ICA and World Health Organization and indeed the Pan American Health Organization, and also to continue strengthening the Latin American group for social networking. We launched this in Guatemala in 2019. In Dominican Republic, more has been done. We are looking at those who are handicapped, and this, of course, works with Paraguay, Chile, and others. This inter-Paris cooperation that is among equals and equally set to work through the OAS's Social Inclusion Department, effective groups, social measures that will align our own measures with what is happening at an international level. We wish to be solidarity. We wish to speak for solidarity and inclusion, and we call out to the second summit on social development that will be held in 2035, so that we can work always to uphold human dignity and respect. Thank you. Uruguay is recognized. Thank you, Chair, and let me begin by greeting Madam Chair as well. We're particularly pleased to have this joint session of our two committees, and we appreciate the comments that have been offered thus far. This is a constructive and a frank dialogue, and so it must be, so that we know how better to uphold social protection. In my own country, it is children, adolescents, and elderly women who are particularly at risk. Our effective public policy, therefore, must target them. We take this opportunity to reiterate our commitment to social protection, not only from the standpoint of an overall focus on crisis when it arises, but also so that we work in a preventive manner and in an effective manner wherein people are at the heart of the measures and not just policies. The active promotion of identification of structural reasons why these gaps are found takes us to look at early and earliest childhood. This is something we must be very, very, very focused on, because to work on babies, children at the earliest eras, we're doing much more to work against exclusion and intergenerational poverty. The challenge is great, but Uruguay has managed to put together an integral system of care that is very much a part of our state policy that upholds quality in health, education for boys and girls and the elderly, as well as the handicapped. We seek also to ensure that women become socially very much a part of society and not an afterthought. The International Institute on Statistics in Uruguay helped put together the work offered us by UNDP and others. This has helped us set much better elements so that we can ensure that our policies are targeted and effective. We see, Chair, that in order to meet particularly Objective 1, eradication of poverty, on the list of the social development goals, is something that needs to spur us on, so that their overall character, which is universal, must also be sustainable. Let's keep learning from each other, and let us do so within the framework of the OAS. We very firmly believe that working against poverty and resilience and working for resilient societies is a sine qua non for our democracies themselves to be solid and workable. We hope that we can continue eradicating poverty and food insecurity so that all of our societies can be the more resilient as possible. Thank you. Peru is recognized. Thank you. Peru is very grateful for having this meeting and your having convened us here so that we can put our heads together as regards the challenges before us in terms of social development. The pandemic hit us very hard in many respects. Essential public services were very hard hit, and poverty and hunger skyrocketed. We hope, therefore, that particularly in those sectors that are often excluded, rural, indigenous, women, may be brought back in. Monetary transfers in cases of emergency and community food support have gone a long way. We have digital platforms that will help us improve our social services. But all of this shows that more yet needs to be done. Our social protection has to be more sustainable and more focused on rights. Peru recognizes, in that regard, that the systems themselves have to be tailored to the different moments in one's life cycle. It isn't one size fits all throughout one's lifetime. And we hope that through a reactivation of RIPSO and the various working groups of the Inter-American Development on Social Protection, we will be able to focus on innovative measures that will make a difference to our country. The OAS can do this, and indeed its role rather, can be even more important than we've seen it thus far. We need to mobilize technical assistance so that our social policies are more effective, as Dr. Betty Nunez has already said. Peru is committed to the eradication of hunger and poverty and to Inter-American integrated policies so that we can do better. Thank you. Thank you very much. Paraguay is recognized. Ambassador. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Chairman. It is an honor for the delegation of Paraguay to be able to participate in this common dialogue between the Permanent Council and the Inter-American Council on Integral Development on the goals, the needs, and lessons learned with regard to social protection in our region. The government of Paraguay is committed to the eradication of poverty and improving the welfare of its population. And where social protection is concerned, we focus on the individual and on the most marginalized. This has led to the National Plan for the Reduction of Poverty. We have a beautiful name for it in Guarani, our national language, which in Spanish means is together we'll do better. This focuses on people who are particularly vulnerable on the basis of data that has come to us from our National Institute on Statistics. And one of the most important lessons learned has been the importance of interinstitutional coordination. To that end, the social unit within the Presidency of the Republic has come into play together with key elements of our society, agricultural credit, rural development, and help in the social development. This structure has set up 22 different tables on different aspects of social development throughout our territory. But as to concrete instruments that have proven to be very useful, we have the program Petocora, which in Spanish is Live Well, which aims at people in a situation of poverty, where there has been 25% of monetary transfer and monthly payments. More than 175,000 families are being helped, including indigenous peoples, people that are handicapped, and people in the poorest areas. Also the program Tenomera, which means moving forward, that works with the capital Semilla, that is seed capital, in order to focus on the realities that people are facing, both in the urban and the rural areas. In 2026, in 2025, I should say, more than 500 people were able to help their businesses. The program Abrazo has helped with small children. 6 new centers and more than 11,000 boys, girls, and adolescents have benefited. Finally, with the promulgation of Law 7032/24, we have made official the transfer to elderly adult. This will come under Social Security so that the effectiveness of the program and its transparency will be improved. This, we feel, gives Paraguay something inclusive, something lasting, that not only makes a difference in the immediate future, but as we move forward. So, Chair, we in Paraguay believe very much in the importance of sharing our ideas, sharing best practices. That's why we're here today. And we hope that as we move forward, we can continue using the Inter-American space so that all together we can make this hemisphere something more just and more solid, buttressed by solidarity. Thank you. Chile is recognized next. Thank you. We were so pleased at the reception of our great authority, Dr. Garcia Larsen. The National Alliance, the World Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty is one to which we belong. And in that framework, ECLAC must remind us that social protection means guaranteeing access to services in a universal manner. We're talking about health, education, a roof over your head, decent work. But in that regard, both poverty and inequality generate particular difficulties. And these are difficulties that we're going to face our lifelong in different ways. And so when we look at the life cycle, Chile, we believe, has learned quite a bit as we've moved along. And we know that helping the elderly is to us of particular importance. We wish to share this because when you asked us to tell you what we've learned along the way, we can say the following. 40 years ago, we had a system of pensions that would transfer to the individuals their whole responsibility and their whole risk. If you decided that you were good savings, good for you, you would do better. But we recognize that not everybody is gifted in the same way. And the idea that everybody should do what they can themselves and good luck isn't good enough, because problems are not just individual, as individual as they may be. That was one point we recognized. Secondly, we know that a lot of people felt, well, the state is a problem. Less of a governmental presence, better off for all of us. But 40 years ago, we recognized that that isn't so. First of all, because there was over-insistence on an authoritarian state, and also because women were the losers. Very often in the periods in which women were not, as head of the households, saving enough, it was because they were pregnant, they were giving birth, they were taking care of their infant children, babies, I should say. It is interesting how we have finally put our thinking caps on and learned, I think. Now, we could not have just one system. We needed a hybrid role where the private sector had a role to play, with the state playing a role as well. And that is how we have learned as we've gone, with a social dialogue that understands that solutions have to come from across the board. Several mistakes, several lost decades, finally led us to the reform of the social system in Chile. Finally, we had no majority in either one of the chambers of the government, but 38 in the chamber and something in the Senate moved together. What is it exactly that we're looking for? First of all, we want to be sure that the pension that everybody gets, no matter whether they've saved enough or not, will be there for them. Secondly, we want to know that 7% on the part of employers has to be put in here together with women, as they have been able to save. But that the enterprises that deal with the system can work together so that everybody has a role to play. And so that now we have 3 million people receiving pensions. And when there's a gap in those pensions for reasons that isn't their fault, we recognize the years that they've been in the workforce. So this reform that we're talking about and that I'm describing very, very briefly will make a difference to the people who need to be helped now and in the future, and to be sure that the historic bias against women will be finally offset. We feel that there is not only good practices to learn, but let us also learn from our mistakes. And let us share those mistakes. Let's not be ashamed of them, because we can all learn from those mistakes. When there is a mixed approach, as Dr. Sani Martin has said, we know that it's opportunities and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. The delegation of Ecuador is recognized. Thank you. And greetings to you, Chair, and to the President or the Chair for Social and Comprehensive Development. We're very pleased to be here to discuss the increase for social protection in the Americas. The government of Ecuador understands that any action that will lead to eliminate hunger, finally eliminate poverty, and help people move forward have to be considered a priority and a top priority. This is what we celebrate here. We're glad that policies here have been discussed and better understood, and how important it is that we meet as we meet today to learn from each other. What are the best practices? We have hemispheric commitments and the 2030 objectives, of course, mean that we must know how to mobilize public and private resources, as well as generate strategic alliances among and between governments, among the banking sectors, and the private sector as well. There are main objectives that need to cover the resilience of those social programs to ensure their financial sustainability and their capacity of response. That's important. But there are also various opportunities, such as digital transformation, which offers a wonderful catalyst for social mobilization and broadening of its scope. The government of Ecuador, Chair, has put in practice a number of strategies to fight poverty. The new Ecuador 2025 is one focused on social development, infrastructure, energy, the environment, and risk policies. Includes 107 various challenges that are linked to the 2030 agenda and sustainable development. There's also the 2025 opportunities that focus on helping families and guaranteeing their rights to services and recognition of their diversity. We also look at infrastructure in the rural areas, access to drinking water and sanitation. All of these reflect the commitment of Ecuador with the eradication of poverty as a whole. And our integral or comprehensive public policies focuses on the structural or causal roots of these difficulties. And by doing so, we focus on health, education, proper living conditions, housing, and a focus on peoples and nationalities. Ecuador maintains its firm commitment to keep working among ourselves with the member states and the various organizations so that our hemisphere can be one that speaks to greater solidarity, where people don't suffer hunger, and where we move forward together. Thank you. Thank you. El Salvador is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. Chairs, plural, Mr. and Madam Chairman. We are reminded here that the systems of social protection really behoove us all. And if we look to development, that is what we need to remember. The pandemic made this clear. We need solid structures to guarantee people's assistance where they are most vulnerable. To that end, access to health, to quality education, proper housing, proper employment, and enough money to aspire to a dignified living in general is key. We in El Salvador are very much focused on this, and we know how close this is linked to environmental and security measures. We have taken very firm steps toward a model of development that is more inclusive and more sustainable. We have a legal and institutional framework that aims at drawing up policies that will have social implementation policies to avoid structural poverty and violence and fight it resolutely. This means that we must have ongoing efforts to ensure that all sectors of the population are kept in mind. The work employment to the whole of the population is one that is at the top of our list. We have a law that has increased by 30% pensions to the workers and which set up the Salvadoran Institute for Pensions. That aimed also at broadening the Social Security coverage. That means that independent laborers can join the Social Security system of the state so that all of the economic support and protection, if there is an accident or in the case of maternity, are covered. All of the students within our public national educational systems are also covered. We ensure that their food is healthy, that those who bring us that food, agriculturers and animal husbandry people, are also part of the mix. We know that poverty is multidimensional in El Salvador. That is why we have a strategy that aims at 4 main components: social family support, social financial inclusion, support for the reduction of inequality gaps, and infrastructure for the generation of greater opportunity and social protection. Together with this, the government is implementing an economic plan that is focused on 3 stages. First, food security, technology aimed on macroeconomic growth, and logistics that focus on a strengthening of the effectiveness of our ports. Now, this is a new thing. In ports, we have invested more than $156 million, I should say. Strategic measures have been taken also for food safety. We have 54 acres that focus on fresh food, help local economies, and exoneration of any tax for the people promoting foodstuffs for that social basket. What we aim to communicate here is that everybody, every sector of society has to play a part, and that includes the international community as well. We think that one of the greatest challenges we have here at the OAS is to bring all of the members of the system into this main objective so that the initiatives that we take can be buttressed, so that best practices are better known and better implemented for the sake of social protection. Another important goal is to make sure that international cooperation measures are remembered and are honored in this organization. These are innovative instruments by which we can do better to offering financial support that doesn't have to be repaid. The mandate, above and beyond the ministerial Pan-American challenges like social education and labor, among other mechanisms, is also on the list. We also wish quickly to end by saying that we need to be firm, we need to work jointly, and we need always to work to eliminate poverty in our hemisphere. Thank you. Argentina has the floor. Thank you. Thank you, Chair of the Council and Chair of CD. Let me greet the Secretary General. And since this is the first time that I take the floor in this joint session of the Permanent Council and CD, I greet you all. I want also to express my thanks for the convening of this session and for all of those who have taken the floor, the representatives of IPEA and ICA, and the Department of Social Inclusion, and also PAHO. I want to be as brief as possible. Will be my first statement. I don't want to be buzzed or belled during this session, but I reserve the right to be a little more lengthy the next time I speak. Let me say that the present government in Argentina has focused on a number of policies that are aimed at supporting and strengthening social protection. efficiency, transparency, and the strengthening of assistance to those that are poorest, the most vulnerable, are keys. We also are focusing on controlling inflation because, quite frankly, it was totally out of control in Argentina for the longest time, really out of control. Nothing else I can say. And that meant that the poorest people, the most vulnerable in the population, both wage earners and not, were being hurt. You know that we have education that is free for all of our inhabitants, and that goes from nursery school to university. And so let me say just briefly that on the basis of that broad and inclusive platform, what we focused on, and at least I'd like to say very quickly in this statement, that what we are focusing on is increasing the amount that is being offered per child. That is most important to us from the standpoint of social protection. In 2024, we had reached 231% by way of adjustment. That means that there will be a real improvement in terms of buttressing and harnessing inflation, a big difference in terms of the beneficiaries. And this means that the basic food basket has been improved as well. Homes with adolescents and children that are vulnerable are top of the list. We also have a program, Tarjeta Alimentar, that is a special program that is offered to people who most need the help, and they can go to a particular place where they can buy foodstuffs with assistance. We not only increased this by 137.5%, we also extended the coverage to include adolescents between the ages of 14 and 17. This means that more than 4.7 million boys, girls, and adolescents throughout the country have been helped. The tail end of all of these measures, the impact of all of this, when I take together both of these instruments, the UAH, that is the child support per child, and the overall system, by the end of 2024, meant that we have 100% of the basic food basket for all of the families that are on the list. But we have a structural measure that also made a big difference among the beneficiaries. We eliminated the intermediaries in that distribution of social services. Why? Well, for obvious reasons. We want the help to go to the people who need it most and not go round and round through all kinds of intermediaries. That spells transparency and best effectiveness in those social programs. Now, please let me speak to ICA when the Director General will speak this afternoon. That's why I will not speak to ICA now, but I'll speak then if I may. Thank you very much.
Paso a palabra, delegación.
Bolivia has the floor. Thank you very much, chairs. The plurinational state of Bolivia truly appreciates this joint meeting that has been convened, and we would like to invite you to think about how we are going to think about strengthening social protection as social justice and development pillars in the Americas. There is no shadow of a doubt that our region is going through challenging times. Hunger and structural poverty and social exclusion still exist, and even with indigenous peoples and Afro-descendants and in rural areas, particularly hard-hitting women and children. The pandemic had its own hard-hitting way, but it opened up the world's mind to deal responsibly for everyone with these challenges in Bolivia. We have dealt with this challenge from an all-encompassing model, the social model, which is focused on the community, adopted by our Constitution of 2019, puts human beings over and above the market and recognizes the role of the state as a redistributing actor. We have promoted national policies such as the subsidies for pregnant women and other measures to ensure that children and adolescents go to school. Dignity in taking care of adults is crucial, and the food programs for the entire population are there. Not only did this look at our monetary policy, but we also promoted educational inclusion and care when it came to health. We see that the political will and public policies across the board can transform realities overnight. Between 2006 and 2016, the plurinational state was able to slash extreme poverty from 38 to 18%. In other words, 22 percentage points in a decade was the number. This was hitherto unknown in our continent with a population of approximately 11 million people. This stride meant that more than 2 million Bolivians, both men and women alike, came out of extreme poverty. We realized the specific impact that an economic model had when it put people first, and it looked at this from a distributed way. Nonetheless, we recognize that the current challenges call for more operationalization action. Multidimensional poverty and multi-sector poverty, particularly in rural and border areas, lead us to have social protection systems that honor human rights and act to the climate crisis and react to poverty and hunger. That is why Bolivia is committed to move ahead with policies that broach public policies, drinking water, digital connectivity, and food sovereignty. Within that framework, then, we appreciate the relaunching of the Social Protection Network and the Declaration on Priorities for Social Development. Bolivia believes that these mechanisms should not be limited to technical exchanges, but rather should be realities that reflect the needs of different countries and the different realities in our countries and peoples. Whilst we exchange these experiences, we hope that this dialogue will lead to real cooperation and knowledge of good national practices that we share as main roles looking at care. Our experience shows us that when the state recognizes human rights across the board, the social fabric is strengthened and it is based on more just policies for everyone. We hope that this session will not only lead us to deal with common challenge, but will also mark a new stage so that social protection is understood as a fundamental part of human rights and not just in terms of cooperation programs. Bolivia reaffirms its commitment for sustainable development, which is humane, solidly backed, and transformative. Thank you very much. The delegation of Panama has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman. And Sidi, I would like to begin by thanking you for having this joint meeting on one of the most pressing challenges of our time, social protection as a structural part of our democracy and as a basis for sustainability in the Americas. At the same time, let me thank all of the panelists for their very valuable interventions. From Panama's standpoint, we recognize that you cannot have solid democracy without social justice and instability, without any social protection which provides dignity for everyone. That is what we need, especially those that have historically been excluded. And that is why, under the leadership of President Molino, our administration has reaffirmed its commitment with a social agenda based on inclusion, equity, and resilience. Our focus is based on a fundamental truth. It's not enough to grow, you have to grow with a sense of justice, and that implies public policies that ensure that no community and no corner of our country is left behind. With this spirit, then, Panama has strengthened its coverage of social programs geared towards vulnerable groups, promoting attention across the board for children, women, and adults, as well as people with disabilities. The development of indigenous and rural communities is part of our efforts. These efforts look at decentralization and knitting together all governments. This is complemented by digital mechanisms and traceability that allows us to be more efficient, more transparent. In the hemispheric scene, we look at cooperation within that framework. From the chair of the Inter-American Commission of Social Development, we have zoomed in and focused on measuring multidimensional poverty and design public policies which are geared to guaranteeing well-being and a life of good quality. We have an agenda based on social cohesion and human rights. This work has been developed with the Plan of Action of the Dominican Republic, adopted at the 5th Ministers' Meeting and High Authorities of Social Development. We have had the valuable support of social inclusion. This has promoted synergies with the Inter-American Declaration of Priorities in Social Development and resolution of our General Assembly. Today, as part of these multilateral efforts, I would like to address some of the experiences that concern all of us. Humanitarian attention and protection for people that are refugees, migrants in the Darien region. With the help of the OAS and the assistance, we have been able to give basic help and information for families, showing that regional solidarity can be translated into concrete action. We know that the challenges are multiple. It's structural. Systems are fragmented. The gaps are there. Fiscal limits and exclusion of key populations are part of the picture, but we also have some powerful tools such as innovation, regional cooperation, political will, and accumulated knowledge of our own communities. And that is why Panama reiterates its appeal to move towards hemispheric investment based on universal rights for social protection, designed with territories in mind, gender equality. It's not just a social expenditure, but rather a strategic investment in strengthening our democracy to pull our societies together and to consolidate long-lasting peace in the Americas. Chairs, this dialogue cannot just be another conversation or talk. We have to understand that we're at a point of inflection. The OAS as the political forum, which is the most relevant in the continent, has to mobilize a hemispheric agenda that recognizes social protection as a right and not like anything else, but it has to be a pillar for development and not for a residual standby. We reiterate our commitment then for a more fair, just, humane, solid hemisphere, because only that way, in a dignified way, can we build a society where this is not a privilege for the few, but for everyone. Thank you. As we have no further requests for the floor, I would like to extend my gratitude to all delegations for their valuable contributions during today's meeting. I would like to CD to offer some final comments. Ambassador Gilchrist.
Ambassador Belli. I would like to extend my gratitude to all delegations for their valuable contributions during today's meetings. The high-level dialogue has successfully highlighted the importance of strengthening social protection systems in the Americas. This meeting has provided a unique opportunity for OAS member states and expert stakeholders to exchange lessons learned and best practices, particularly in the context of addressing hunger and poverty. The discussions today have underscored the critical role of regional cooperation in advancing inclusive and equitable development. As we move forward, I encourage all delegations to continue building on the ideas and proposals shared today, ensuring that our collective efforts lead to tangible outcomes for the benefit of all people in the Americas. Thank you once again to all participants for your contributions, and I look forward to the continued collaboration in our shared pursuit of a more inclusive and resilient region.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We would like to thank all of the speakers for their contributions, as well as delegations for their own contributions. We particularly thank Ambassador Luan Gilchrist, permanent representative of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and chair of CD, with whom I shared the honor of chairing this joint session. The chair suggests that the Permanent Council and CD take note of the presentations and interventions made, which will be included in the minutes of this session, thus fulfilling the mandate established in General Assembly Resolution 3028. Before I adjourn the session, I would like to invite all delegations to this afternoon come back at 14:30 for the General Committee in this very same room. Thanking everyone for their participation, the session is now adjourned.